A very warm welcome to all of you to the AFST PowerTalk on differentiating between prerequisite programs and operational prerequisite programs. I am Subhaprada Nishtala, and over the next 4 minutes I shall try and explain the rationale behind these two often misunderstood terms. Starting at the basics, every food safety management system is about identifying potential hazards and putting in place control measures to manage them. Control measures are typically divided into following 3 routes. The first one, where you prevent a hazard from entering the system. Let's say strong supply control, where you prevent veterinary drug residues from entering the product. The second route, where you reduce the hazard to an acceptable level, most commonly understood by the example of pasteurization. The third is where the hazard is completely eliminated from the food product. An example of this will be the kill step for the microbial flora. The type of control measure that is being applied and the hazard it controls impact the categorization of control measures into prerequisite programs, operational prerequisite programs, or CCPs. The standard requires that for significant hazards, the control measures are further taken through a 7-step assessment and categorized into oPRPs and CCPs. But how do you decide whether the hazard is significant or not? We are required to do a hazard assessment for every hazard that we identify. This hazard assessment is based on both the probability of the occurrence of the hazard and the severity of its consequences, nothing but risk assessment. Most often, industry uses a numerical grid to do this. So, if you are using a 1 to 5 scale for severity and probability, your risk would lie between 1 and 25. The organization, depending on its role in the food chain, its maturity, it would decide an acceptable risk value, let us say 12. So, all hazards which have a value which is higher than 12 would be termed as significant hazards, and the control measures you apply to manage these hazards would go through an oPRP CCP route, and all the control measures that are applied to the hazards which are insignificant below 12 would be termed as prerequisite programs. Let me try and explain this with an example. Let us take the hazard of E. coli in fresh vegetable sandwich, uncooked. We look at 2 scenarios. Scenario 1, this is being prepared at a roadside vendor, let us say a college canteen, and scenario 2, where this is being prepared in an FSMS certified star rated restaurant. Where do you associate a higher risk of the hazard of E. coli? In scenario 1, the roadside vendor, yes. So, if you do a hazard assessment for these 2 scenarios, most likely scenario 1 your hazard will be above the value of 12, and in scenario 2 it will be below the value of 12. In both cases, you will control the hazard by using the control measure of personal hygiene, yes. But in this first scenario, where your hazard was significant, this personal hygiene is now being considered as an operational prerequisite program, and which will follow the requirements that the standard defines for it in terms of monitoring, in terms of verification, in terms of validation. The same prerequisite program for scenario 2, because the hazard is insignificant, possibly because of better controls that the organization has, this will be termed as a prerequisite program. This categorization, however, is dynamic. If you consider that over a period of 6 months, scenario 1, the roadside vendor improves his systems and brings down the risk associated with E. coli, he will recategorize the oPRP into a PRP. Similarly, in scenario 2, in the star rated restaurant, he might, because of influx of new trainees, poor trained people, if the risk associated goes up, then the PRP could be recategorized as an oPRP. This is only to manage resources better in order to ensure that food safety is taken care of. I trust this helps clarify the difference between PRPs and oPRPs, and do look forward to the next Power Talk on differentiating between oPRPs and CCPs. Thank you.